So last week we talked about dinosaur fossils and like the discoveries of red blood cells and bone marrow, etc., and other biological material, and how we talked about how those won't last more than 10,000 years. We also talked about numerous accounts of dinosaur sightings by man as recorded in a lot of historical writings. But like I said, today we're going to discuss some more recent accounts. And I'm going to start with the Likwela Swamp in Congo and Zaire. It's the largest swamp on Earth. It's about 55,000 square miles, which, ladies and gentlemen, that's roughly the size of Illinois. So one swamp, okay, so it's big. It's about 80% unexplored, largely because it's considered to be the most miserable swamp in the whole world. So, but with that said, the Likwela Swamp is also home to many dangerous animals. In the 1700s, missionaries who lived there came back with reports of dinosaurs being there, although they didn't use that term because that term didn't come around for another 150 years. In 1910, another group of missionaries came back with the same reports. And not surprisingly, the local tribes who live there are well aware of the creatures, the dinosaurs that are in this swamp. So Jonah, if you just watch, I'll do that, and
is there any videos?
we'll do that. No videos, but some of the things that I'm going to discuss, I'm going to show you some photos of. Okay? So one of the animals in there is called M18. It's also called Chipekwe in other languages there, and it means killer of elephants. It's described as being an animal that's semi-aquatic, an herbivore, the size of an African bush elephant, and it has a horn. It's said to be fiercely territorial, and it'll kill things like elephants, buffalo, and hippo if it gets agitated. In 1933, J.E. Hughes wrote in his book, 18 Years on Lake Bangweolo, if I said that right. I'm going through a lot of names that I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing right, but I'm going to do my best. And he said he saw one killed by the Waushi tribesmen, although he didn't refer to it by that particular name. M18 was first mentioned by that name in a 1954 article that came out in the journal Mammalia by one of the game inspectors from the swamp, who said that they dwell throughout the Likwela Swamp. And this animal fits the description of a ceratopsian dinosaur, which are the horned ones, like Triceratops. But there's one called Centrosaurus right here that is depicted there that only had one horn. Then the natives talk about another one called Mekele Memembe, which means one who stops the flow of rivers in the Lingala language. It's reported to be well over 20 feet long, fiercely territorial, and resembles an apatosaurus, or maybe you're more familiar with the term brontosaurus, another similar one. They say it's ferocious. It'll kill hippos and crocs, which apparently fear it and keep away from it. I think I would too. In 1932, cryptozoologist Ivan Anderson claimed he saw one in the Mainyu River. He said that its head alone was the size of a hippo. 1979, Reverend Eugene Thomas of Ohio, who also claimed he had close encounters with this dinosaur, told of the killing of Mekele Memembe near Lake Tili in 1959 by the tribal members that he ministered to while he was there. Biologist Dr. Roy Mackle from the University of Chicago has led several expeditions into the Congo in an attempt to locate this creature. In 1981, on that expedition, he found footprints of the dinosaur and experienced a close encounter of one that was submerging, but there are no photos of that encounter. In 1985, American explorer and writer Rory Nugent spotted something in Lake Teely that he described as a slender French curve moving through the water, and he was about to launch a boat to further investigate it, and the natives held him off at gunpoint, saying, because they revered this animal as a god, and they said, "You cannot approach, but if he chooses, this god can approach you." Another dinosaur in this area that the natives are aware of is called a mahamba. They were shown pictures of a crocodile, and they all agreed that it was like a crocodile, but they paced it off to be more the size of 50 foot long. There's also the Mubweli, I think I said that right, which they describe as an animal with planks growing out of its back. Kind of sounds like a stegosaurus. The Mahuru is a lizard-like animal said to be about 15 foot long. In 1976, herpetologist James Powell showed pictures of dinosaurs to a local witch doctor in one of the tribes there, and he picked out Diplodocus as the dinosaur he saw in 1946 that they referred to as Numala. And then there is the Kongomoto. This is the name the natives give for the large flying reptile-like animal that lives in Zambia, Kenya, Angola, Sudan, and Zaire. The word Kongomoto means overwhelmer or breaker of boats. And they gave it that name due to its habit of knocking their boats over when they're in the river. In 1923, Frank Mellon described or collected reports of Kongomoto from natives in Zambia. They say they're tormented by these creatures on occasion. They describe them as being featherless, smooth skin, a beak full of teeth, and a wingspan of 4 to 7 feet. On Roy Mackle's expedition, he also heard of stories of Kongomoto, and he showed them pictures of the pterosaurs, which is the pterodactyl family of flying dinosaurs, and everybody there picked them out as Kongomoto. Now, this same flying dinosaur in Kenya is called Batamzinga. This is an interesting one because Steve Ramondi Menya, a Kenyan student who was at Louisiana State University in 1998, said that Batamzinga live in his village in Kenya. He was in a discussion in a class where this came up, and he was telling everybody, "Oh yeah, we have those in my village." He said they have a wingspan of about 4 feet, and they love to eat decaying human flesh. So he said when they have funerals, when people die, they have to be very careful and bury them soon, otherwise these things come around. The size of these reptiles, with the wingspan he describes, fits the category of a Rhamphorhynchus, which is one of the pterosaurs. In Venezuela, the Yek Indians have stories of a man-eating bird that lives in the caves in the mountains around there, and it's said to attack canoes and carry people off. In Papua New Guinea, the flying reptile there they call ropin. He's described as being nocturnal, with leathery wings like a bat, a long tail with a diamond-shaped flange on the end, a beak full of teeth, and razor-sharp claws. And then, I guess, was it last week? I already told you about the piasol bird from the Illini Indians. But most of the American Indians tribes in the western U.S. all have stories about the thunderbird, which could very well have been the largest flying dinosaur ever, the Quetzalcoatlus. Yes? Well, I guess,
More like they don't want to find them.
well,
I mean, it's kind of safe if you don't find them.
so these accounts that I'm sharing with you is that sometimes they have been, it's just that I don't know that there is the belief or interest level that would get people to do that type of involvement. Unless it's Bigfoot. I mean, there's tons of stories about Bigfoot, and there's shows all over the TV now about Bigfoot.
I don't even buy that. We got planes that can be 10 feet up that can scan you on a little screen using your heat. It would have been found by now.
All right, well, that is a good point, though. All right, so the Quetzalcoatlus, this pterosaur had a wingspan similar to that of a modern jet. And they would weigh about 220 pounds. So if that guy came down on you, you would know it in a hurry, right? All right, there's also a story of two cowboys who apparently shot and killed one outside Tombstone, Arizona in 1890. It had smooth skin, featherless wings like a bat, and a face that they say resembled an alligator. They dragged it into Tombstone and hung it across a barn and apparently stretched the entire length of the barn. And the Tombstone Epitaph ran the story of this on April 26, 1890. So they put it in the papers. And there's also reports of giant flying creatures that have been seen in the past decade in places like Alaska, Pennsylvania, Montana, Massachusetts, just to name a few states. Here's a couple of them. In 2001, teenager claimed to have seen a giant flying creature over Route 119 in South Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Said it sounded like flags flapping in the wind. Had a wingspan of 10 to 15 feet and a head about 3 feet long. Other sightings have taken place in the same area as recently as 2010, when a bunch of people saw a flying creature matching the same description at a barbecue. And there are more. And all these sightings describe a very similar creature. Smooth, leathery skin, void of feathers, etc. But in addition to these dinosaurs that we've just discussed in the terrestrial and flying forms, you as well as I know that there are hundreds, if not thousands, I mean hundreds of thousands, that's what I'm trying to get at, of stories of sea monsters, right? From all over the globe. And there's a few of those that I'd like to mention today.
I actually have pictures of one that they found dead.
I got some pictures of these that I'm going to show you, yeah. Lake Akita in Japan. There's been over 100 sightings of the creature there they call Issy, as well as another one in Lake Tashiga, and they're both plesiosaurus-like creatures. Lake Östersund in Sweden, there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of sightings of a creature there, as well as video and photos of a creature there they say is anywhere from 33 to 39 feet long. Lake Okanagan in British Columbia in Canada, there have been numerous sightings of a dinosaur there, said to be 40 to 50 feet long. They call him Ogopogo. Interesting name, but that's what they call him. It's got a nice funny ring to it. Hundreds of sightings of Caddy exist, which is another creature seen off the coast of British Columbia, Canada. They named it Caddy because it looks like a Cadborosaurus. Cadborosaurus, there we go. Several carcasses have been found of Caddy, and there's even reports of 2 live baby ones being caught by fishermen. Several photos of this guy exist. Here's one from 1937. This is him here. This thing, all the dark right through here. It almost looks like it has a head almost like a seahorse. And they're 10 to 20 feet long, somewhere in that range. This one came out of the belly of a sperm whale in 1937. So he apparently had been had for lunch. In October 1994, a 39-foot carcass of something washed up on the shore in Russia in the region of Sakhalin. September of 2002, a 25-foot long carcass washed up on the shore in Parker's Cove, Canada. This guy was photographed and given the name Parky. There's Parky. The carcass was seen by a ton of people who also cut pieces of it off as souvenirs. And there have been numerous other sightings of Parky in this area. If you see the fellow here, you get an idea of the size comparison of that thing. If you look closely, this thing has two flippers here, two flippers back here.
Wait, where's they got more photos?
Back there behind it.
See the guy back here? See his legs?
Oh, wow.
That gives you an idea of the size comparison of that guy. There's Chesapeake Chessie. Been spotted numerous times in the Potomac River. Again, something resembling a plesiosaurus. In June of 1996, fishermen caught a 14-foot-long ribless creature that had feelers on its head off of Block Island, Rhode Island. So he got the name, the Block Ness Monster, of course, right? Because it's off of Block Island. There's our Block Ness Monster. Lake Erie has one, and he's been given the name Bessie. This guy's been sighted for over 200 years, being anywhere from 30 to 40 feet long and large fins. One notable sighting in July of 1892, the entire crew of the schooner Madeline saw one swimming alongside it on their way from Buffalo to Toledo. They said it was about 50 feet long, large fins, and viciously sparkling eyes. That's what they said. Lake Champlain is the home of another plesiosaurus-like dinosaur named Champ. And this Champ has been sighted hundreds of times over hundreds of years. There are a lot of photos of this guy. If you've seen one of this guy, this is likely the photo you've seen. This is one of the more famous photos of Champ. So there's Champ. The Scituate Sea Monster is another one. Washed ashore on the beach in Scituate, Massachusetts in November of 1970. It was 50 feet long and weighed an estimated 10 tons. That's a big fella. It was actually blown up by dynamite by the local authorities. They figured that was the best way to get rid of it. However, before doing that, there were a bunch of pieces who cut pieces of it off for souvenirs. And there are photos of this guy. Here's one right here. Again, you see this thing has two fins up here. More difficult to see, but a likely one's back here or maybe here. With all the people standing there, you get a nice comparison of the size of that thing. Then there's this one. On April 25th, 1977, and I'm not sure about this, but that's maybe said the Zuyu Maru, something close to that, fishing vessel of the Taiyo Fishery Company of Japan. They caught a large animal carcass in their nets off the coast of New Zealand. They brought it on board, took several photographs and measurements. It was 33 feet long and weighed 2 tons. The 17 crew members who saw the carcass said that it was not a fish or any other animal that they were familiar with. Here's what they photographed in their nets.
There's a lot of photos of this one.
This one's all over the internet. Yep. This is its head, fins here, and then its back goes down around back there. Okay?
Was it like cut in half?
No, it is bent over. It's not cut in half. They got it up. They're hoisting it by like the middle, and it's flipped over half. It's being held about in the middle of its back.
That looks like blood, like it was cut in half right there.
So, this is an interesting one. Because with this guy, they took tissue samples, right? And they analyzed them. They did amino acid comparisons of what they call the horny fiber from the carcass, and they compared it to the collagenous proteins elastoidin, and those are found only in sharks and rays. And they came up with the data saying there was 98% identity. And everybody jumped on that and said, that's evidence that it's a basking shark. I don't know about you, but that thing in the nets is not a basking shark. However, what this data actually tells us is that if this creature was a basking shark, the identity would have been 100%. Okay? So the results show that it's something different than a basking shark. But here's the thing. Without having tissue samples from a plesiosaurus or whatever animal it is to compare it to, you're never going to be able to make an accurate or positive identification. All you can say from this is whether or not it's a basking shark. And the data say that it's not, because it was not 100% identical. Plus, that thing does not look anything like a basking shark. Sorry. In 1969, fishermen on the City Island Bridge in Bronx, New York, spotted a creature much bigger than a whale swimming past one of the largest cities in the world. And the harbor police saw it and gave chase, but they were unable to catch it. The point is, right past New York City. In 1925, the carcass of a plesiosaurus-like dinosaur washed ashore on Monterey Beach in California. The creature was photoed and found, the people who found it saw that it wasn't nearly as badly decomposed as some of the other carcasses that have washed up on shore. And the pictures again show a plesiosaurus-like dinosaur with a neck about 20 feet long, which was confirmed by everybody who saw it. And here are some of those pictures. Again, here are the folks comparing the size to. The neck area coming back this way and then running back around there. So there is the, what do they call this one? The Monterey Beach monster. Then, of course, how can we do all this without mentioning the Loch Ness Monster, right? Which is affectionately called Nessie, found in the Loch Ness in the Highlands of Scotland. So in 1933, they built a road that gave people access to that loch. And since then, there have been over 11,000 sightings of Nessie. And you know as well as I that there have been numerous photos and videos taken of this one, and there's a lot of opinions out there out there about this one. And if you want to talk about some of the photos, here are some of the more famous ones that I'm sure you've seen. These are probably three of the most famous ones of the Loch Ness Monster. But I bring up Nessie to also mention that there are 7 other lochs in this area in Scotland that have similar sightings of a similar creature, as well as sightings of a creature similar to this that have been seen in the English Channel. So it's not just Loch Ness, there's a bunch of them in that area around there. In 1999, Gene Sauerwein filmed a creature 10 to 15 feet long in a Florida lake. The creature has been analyzed by a bunch of people. There have been numerous eyewitnesses that have seen this thing on other occasions. And the video of this footage actually ended up being on a show called Monster Quest, where they did analysis of this creature. It's interesting because it's got like a Triton tail, so like a three-pronged tail-like thing, and it has features that are about the size of a manatee kind of thing, but much bigger and faster than one of those. Anyway, the marine biologists that they interviewed on this program said that it can't be a dinosaur because they all went extinct. That was the evidence that it couldn't be a dinosaur, because they all went extinct. So, herein lies the problem that we have with everything that I just mentioned, as well as numerous other things that have been spotted by people over hundreds of years. In here is the problem. The evolutionists try to debunk all this stuff because it's all based on their biased, unsubstantiated opinions that the dinosaurs and other similar creatures all went extinct millions and millions of years ago. They simply can't believe that things like this could still exist because it would destroy their belief system. Yes?
You think this this whole thing about dinosaurs like it was just a way from the beginning to make money or whatever off of finding, obstacles?
When you get involved,
So that way they have it's the thing that only they know about, that they can confirm or whatever. That's their expertise.
in numerous areas of research, and I would include this in there, there's tons of money involved in that type of stuff. So to be able to hold those type of positions, yes, in fact, it will bring a lot of money in. And a lot of what is done in research is driven by the money that's available and being able to get your hands on grant money. That's correct. Yep. All right, so instead they make these claims that these things are other animals. And I mentioned basking shark with that one. Basking sharks are ones they love. Just about everything that washes up on the shore, like these pictures that we see, they often say it's a basking shark. That's one that they love to say. But look, those photos that we looked at, and like you were saying, you can go on the internet and see tons of this kind of stuff. That's not a basking shark. If you look and see what a basking shark looks like, it looks nothing like those. So, really big. All these accounts and the tons more that are out there, all these people saw something that led to these accounts that come from all over the globe. Something that goes beyond what is seen and recorded as known species today. Now, what I want to add here, in addition to everything we just talked about, I personally don't think it's surprising that the Bible also mentions dinosaurs living right alongside of man. In Job 40, 15 to 24, God says to Job, look at the behemoth, which I made along with you. I find that is an interesting statement. And which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar. The sinews of its thighs are close knit. Its bones are tubes of bronze. Its limbs like rods of iron. It ranks first among the works of God, yet its maker can approach it with his sword. The hills bring it their produce, and all the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plants it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal it in their shadow. The poplars by the stream surround it. A raging river does not alarm it. It's secure, though the Jordan should surge against its mouth. Can anyone capture it by the eyes or trap it and pierce its nose? Funny. This guy lives in the marshes. Sounds just kind of like that creature we talked about in the Loquella swamp, right? Like an Apatosaurus or a Brontosaurus or any of the ones from that family. Job was obviously aware of these dinosaurs because God was showing them off to him. But guess what? The Bible also mentions in Job 26:13 the gliding serpent. Chapter 41 of Job also thoroughly describes the dinosaur Leviathan, even to the point of it being able to breathe fire. Then we have Psalm 74:14 and Psalm 104:26, which also reference the dinosaur Leviathan. And Isaiah 27:1 states, Leviathan, the gliding serpent, Leviathan, the coiling serpent, he will slay the monster of the sea. All I know from this is Leviathan and Behemoth were obviously dinosaurs that you did not want to mess with. But all these accounts that I'm sharing with you are not the only evidence of dinosaurs living right alongside man. Some of the most striking evidence, and also the most damning for the evolutionists, exists in the form of fossilized footprints. To begin with, what's that?
There's Mayan structures with depictions of.
I'm going to get to some of that too, son. You're right. Fossilized human footprints have been found in Mexico, Arizona, Illinois, Texas, New Mexico, and Kentucky in rocks that are supposed to be 250 million years old. This has to be quite embarrassing for the evolutionists because remember I told you the humans didn't supposedly evolve until 125,000 years ago. You almost feel sorry for them. But to make matters worse here, there are fossilized dinosaur footprints that have been found right alongside and nearly superimposed on those of humans. This is where it really gets troublesome for them. In Glen Rose, Texas, exists the longest consecutive dinosaur trail in North America along the Paluxy River. They have tracks that are over 500 feet long and it contains 154 dinosaur tracks. Now in this location, there are human footprints alongside, right across, even superimposed on those of the dinosaurs. And here are some of these photos. This one right here, this is dinosaur tracks going this way. These are the human footprints going that way. Right through there. And like I said, there's 154 different dinosaur tracks through there. When you get up close, this is called the duck footprint. You see our dinosaur track? Look at this. The human footprint. Right on top of the edge of the dinosaur track. So, how does this happen? Yeah, ouch. He stepped on his foot, right? How did this happen if dinosaurs supposedly went extinct 65 million years before man came on the scene? And the answer, the hint that I'll give you to the answer that it doesn't.
It's not a dinosaur footprint.
It's not possible. The only way this is possible, remember these are fossilized footprints, is if humans and dinosaurs actually walked side by side, or they were in the same area within a very short amount of time of one another. And guess what? There's more. On the Turkmenian Plateau in Turkmenistan, you have the longest dinosaur trail on the planet. In this set of footprints, you find over 3,000 dinosaur tracks representing 65 different species of dinosaurs. And guess what? There are human footprints right alongside them. Again, this can only happen if humans and dinosaurs actually walked alongside of one another. Pure and simple. That's what the data say. The data speak for themselves. But there's another fossil that gives them, the evolutionists, even more problems. Trilobites are animals that that supposedly went extinct over 260 million years ago. So they supposedly lived from 600 to 260 million years ago. And these are marine isopods that look like kind of a cross between a horseshoe crab and a pill bug. The little roly-poly things. So they're kind of like a cross between those two. But guess what? In 1968, William Meister found a fossilized trilobite inside a fossilized human footprint in Antelope Spring, Utah.
Aren't trilobites still around?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'm not sure. We're going to get to other living fossils here, but I'm not sure if that's one of them. I don't know. The footprint was found in Cambrian Wheeler Shale. That's supposed to be 500 million years old. Okay? Here's a photo of this. There he is. With super enlarged image of the trilobite back there by the heel of the left foot. Okay? But please take note of this, because it's not only a fossilized human footprint on a trilobite, it's a fossilized human footprint of someone wearing shoes, which makes it even more significant. Because how did someone wearing shoes like a sandal step on a trilobite that supposedly went extinct 260 million years ago, when again, the humans supposedly didn't evolve until 125,000 years ago? Oh, and by the way, we've only been wearing what they refer to as well-shaped footwear for about, a few thousand years. Now we start having all kinds of problems. Again, and the answer to that question is that none of these evolutionary dates are accurate. The only thing that's accurate here is somebody wearing well-shaped footwear stepped on a trilobite so that none of them lived 260 million years ago. That's the only thing that's accurate here. Otherwise, these two things could not have fossilized at the same time.
Is it a fish? What is it?
No, it's like I said, it's an isopod.
It's like
A bug?
It's non-vertebrate.
it's like a.
It's more like a bug. Okay, it's more like a bug.
Like roly-poly.
All right. In addition to all this stuff, there are thousands, if not millions, of human artifacts depicting the coexistence of humans and dinosaurs. A Roman sword was found with a dinosaur etched in it. Cave and cliff drawings in Utah and Canada from around 400 to 1300 AD depict dinosaurs. In 1924, the Doheny expedition into the Havasu Canyon in the Grand Canyon found Indian cave drawings resembling things like duck-billed dinosaurs or an iguanodon. In the 1560s, the Spanish conquistadors found stones with carvings of dinosaurs in them in Ica, Peru, dating from about 500 to 1500 AD. And these rounded stones have become known as the Nazca burial stones. And pottery and tapestries depicting dinosaurs were also found in these ruins and in the tombs. Today, a total of 16,000 of these stones have been found. They range from 5 to 800 pounds, and they've mostly been collected by Dr. Javier Cabrera, who houses them in his own museum. Nearly 1/3 of these stones depict specific dinosaurs. Things like Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, Diplodocus, Pterosaurs. So folks, that's about 5,000 of these stones that have the dinosaurs on them. And there's about 500 of them that depict dinosaurs interacting with humans. some even appearing to be domesticated. Others clearly were not domesticated because they depict humans struggling with them, hunting them, or even being attacked by them. And then we have this. Some of them even depict circular patterns on the skin of the dinosaurs. So, if it's not interesting enough that these stones imply that the ancient Peruvians not only saw but lived among dinosaurs, possibly even domesticating some, the circular patterns that they draw on the skin are even more interesting. Because in the past couple decades, there have been several discoveries of dinosaur skin. In 1995, traces of dinosaur skin were found in a quarry in Katsuyama, Japan. A large surface, about 60% of which was covered by the skin. Dr. Masateru Shibata of the Fukai Prefectural Dinosaur Museum explained to Discovery News that they were likely that of a hadrosaur. But here's what's interesting. They show polygonal and circular patterns of 3 to 5 millimeters in diameter and up to 1 millimeter in height. Other discoveries of dinosaur skin, or their impressions, have described small conical shaped spines and both small and large rounded scales. So we have circular patterns, conical shapes, and rounded scales. Exactly what's depicted on the Nazca burial stones. So from these circular patterns, it appears that ancient Peruvians actually saw dinosaurs alive and in person. How else can you account for their authentic depiction of not only so many dinosaurs, but the detail of what their skin looked like? It's pretty convincing. But in 1925, German merchant Waldemar Julsrud, I think that's how you say that, discovered numerous dinosaur figurines buried in the valley of Acambaro, which is about 180 miles north of Mexico City. He found over 33,000 of these, depicting several hundred different types of dinosaurs on what come to be called the dinosaur figurines of Acambaro. He found figurines of, look at all these guys: Trachodon, Gorgosaurus, Monoclonius, Titanosaurus, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Paleococcynus, Diplodocus, Podokesaurus, Struthiomimus, I think I got that one right, Plesiosaur, Mysosaura, Rhamphorhynchus, Iguanodon, Brachiosaurus, Pteranodon, Dimetrodon, Ictorinus, Tyrannosaurus, of course, just to name a few.
So I'm just getting mine. You know how they say like certain types of dinosaurs exist at certain times? Does that mean that like all the dinosaurs that have ever existed, they all existed at the same time?
I believe that there is no separation of their time scale. That's correct. Otherwise, they wouldn't be collecting these images of so many different ones at the same time. And here's the thing. This list goes on and on. The collection actually contains pretty much every known type of dinosaur. So the question is, how do you explain these ancient people like the Incas had such first-hand knowledge of what so many dinosaurs looked like alive? The only logical explanation is that they did in fact see them alive and in person. A few other things. When Saddam Hussein dug up ancient Babylon, they found wall carvings of dragons. Mosaics from Palestrina, Italy, dated from 100 AD, have been found that show humans fighting off dinosaurs with arrows and spears. Ancient Egyptian pottery has been found that shows long-necked dragons. There's a carving of a stegosaurus on the Ta Prohm Cambodian temple, which was built in 1186. How did they know what a stegosaurus looked like if they died off 60 million years ago and they weren't dug up yet? In the, I'm probably going to butcher this one, El Qanatir, I'm going to go with that, a Jewish synagogue outside the ancient Roman town in Golan Heights. A stone carving dated from about 400 to 700 AD was found depicting a theropod dinosaur and another large dinosaur attacking a horse, and it looks as if they were working together. Then we have the Muktinath temple in Nepal. Has a wall on it that has 108 dragon heads that all serve as fountains. And there's also the head of a dinosaur like a triceratops. This temple was consecrated in 1815, which is about 60 to 80 years before any of these dinosaurs were dug up or understood. All of these images, tapestries, paintings, carvings, stones, etc., from different times, different civilizations, from all across the globe, simply can't be ignored. These remnants can only be explained in terms of people actually seeing the dinosaurs that they depicted and interacted with alive and in person. How else could these people know what all these things looked like long before they were dug up and described? You just can't dream up things or guess what these things would look like and be accurate with it. But one last thing. The dinosaurs, as you were mentioning, they're not the only living fossils. I already told you about the coelacanth. Remember the fish supposedly went extinct 300 million years ago, but oh yeah, they're still alive and well out there. Guess what? There's more. You might be surprised to know that there are literally hundreds of different types of animals, plants, bacteria, and fungi, alive and well today that are unchanged from the way they appear in the fossil records. The fact of the matter is that our world is covered with living fossils of all forms of life. And here's the point. If evolution was true, this would not be the case. Those plants and animals that lived hundreds of million years ago, there we go, would certainly not be around any longer because evolution would have either selected them out of the population, causing them to go extinct, or to evolve into something else. This makes it impossible to believe that plants or animals could be separated by hundreds of millions of years and still remain unchanged.
You know the whole dinosaurs. How big and how much would it have to take in order to wipe out an entire planet's worth of animals?
Rather large. Rather large.
Kind of like a dent in our Earth.
Because they're basically, they're saying the asteroid hit the Earth and wiped everything out, that it would had to have caused a global mass extinction, which means it had to change the climate.
I don't say we have like a little dent in our world.
You would find something extremely large, a crater extremely large as a remnant of that. Yes, it would be massive.
That thing would be like a continent or something.
And we're going to get into talking about another global cataclysmic event, which I've already mentioned a little bit before, the flood and the things that it would have done when we start talking about Noah's Ark, etc. But anyway, some examples. We have the deciduous American sweet gum tree, the North American shrub called the sweet fern, the horseshoe crab, the gastropod, also called the lightning whelk, woolly pine trees, and on and on and on. These are examples of things that are identical to their fossils that are supposed to be tens to hundreds of million years old. But guess what? There's a bunch more examples. Look at this list. I'm going to try to read through this. Today there are species of cockroaches, lacewings, antlions, snake flies, assassin bugs, dragonflies, the okapi, crocodiles, alligators, the nautilus, ginkgo trees, archaebacteria, fungi, bats, lungfish, seahorses, cave bears, the tuatara, stingrays, herring, hagfish, mud skippers, gar, sturgeons, arowana, sharks, horsetail plants, dawn redwoods, poplar trees, plane trees, willow trees, ferns, shrimp, crabs, needlefish, snakes, frogs, turtles, lizards, salamanders, spiders, bees, scorpions, wasps, gnats, centipedes, beetles, moths, flies, crickets, mites, midges, ants, termites, aardvarks, shrews, possums, rabbits, beavers, right whales, pelicans, wrens, geese, tired, and on, that still exist today and are identical to their fossils that are supposedly hundreds of millions of years old. And the number of fossilized specimen of these critters ranges in the area of millions. So these are not rare events. Rather, these living fossils are common and everywhere in our world today. So the message from the fossil record is that plants and animals stay the same. Exactly the opposite of what the evolutionists try to tell you. The message is that plants and animals stay the same. These living fossils show us that they could not have been living during this time frame that they supposedly came from, if evolution was true. Rather, all these living fossils, as well as the accounts, the artifacts, the fossils of dinosaurs living as contemporaries, living right alongside humans, all of this tells us of a much younger Earth and much younger inhabitants. The evidence completely destroys the evolutionist timescale and their premise for evolution. Far too many fossils have been shown to either be out of order or still alive. The data show us that dinosaurs and other supposedly extinct fossils did not live millions and millions of years ago. They've been living together with man ever since we were created, which is no more than about 6,000 years, actually. So I finally want to reiterate and emphasize the message that we obtain from living fossils. Living fossils tell us that the earth and life are not as old as the evolutionists try to tell us they are. And it tells us that evolution is simply not happening. Yet somehow, the evolutionists still cling to their fantasy in the face of overwhelming evidence against it. And that evidence I've been sharing with you over the last 12 weeks, right? And let me tell you, there's a lot more that I didn't touch on. So the evidence against it is monumental. And I just think it's a shame that the evolutionists still try to cling to a lie rather than just admit defeat and live according to the truth that, as we all know, can and will set them free. So that is going to wrap up the data section of the topic of evolution. And next week we are going to start talking about another area that I want to address, which is specifically the gap theory. So that'll be next week.